yours.
All right, let's do it, man. Jim, great
All
to
right.
meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So, you're a busy man, and I want to peel back the layers of what you do. But to begin with, I want to start with we're going on the 5 year anniversary of this pandemic. Threw us into the unknown, changed a lot of things. Hopefully, we came out better. Ultimately, living through that time period, how much of that has influenced the way that you live and your work today?
That's a good question. I don't know that I peg any of it really to a change in me, but I will definitely say I think for a lot of people it helped them to see what was important.
Yeah.
And hey, it may not be necessarily how much time you spend at your office, but how much time you spend with your family. I think it also gave a lot of people an eye-opening experience into, hey, I can show up in my house and spend some time with my family and do this sort of thing compared to having to be out of the house all the time to go chase, the formal definition of success. Um, so I think the answer to me would be it gave a lot of people an eye-opening experience into what really mattered and kind of where their time was best spent and like the feeling of being around family and togetherness and that sort of thing that they didn't really have before.
Yeah. Well, it really definitely was a fork in the road. And I think the irony of that time was that we were all connected by this technology, but when we got out of it, we all wanted to actually be in the same room together,
Right.
you know? So let's get into the crux of what you do on a daily basis. And I'm going to do that by putting you in front of a bunch of kids. And there's no better
Okay.
way of getting to the point. So they're grade school kids. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room that's curious, that talks a lot, is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So I make people happy, and that can come in a lot of different versions. But the version that I think is most simple to explain is by helping them figure out who they really are and who they were designed to be. So it's really about the connection between you and your authentic self, right? Peeling back the layers of what society, what your parents, what school, everyone has kind of engineered you to be throughout these years, and just getting back to the authentic version of you that feels free to go and play. And like, again, when you're a kid, so hey, if this is a room full of kids, great example. Who are you when no one's looking? What do you love to do? What is the toy you love to play with? What is the art you love to create? Doing more of that, right? And getting you to be able to have a life as an adult where you can still pay your mortgage, pay your bills, do the things that adults have to do, which kind of suck, while spending most of your time doing the things that you want to do to have fun, to create, to enjoy, and to really get the most out of life where you're not stuck feeling like, man, I have to go work, I have to go do X, Y, and Z. But you get to wake up every day and feel like, I don't even know what day it is because it doesn't really matter. I'm doing something that I truly enjoy. Let's go do it.
Yeah. So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream life?
The original answer would be a veterinarian. Was
Okay.
if you asked me when I was an 8 year old kid, that would have been my answer because I loved animals.
Yeah. So how did that go to the wayside? Did you see the blood and guts or
No, it wasn't really a blood and guts thing. I think for me, what wound up happening was I got an early definition of success and the feeling of making money when I was 8 year old kid. I was home in the summer. My brother and sister were much older, so they were quote unquote responsible for watching me while my parents were at work. But they, were 8 and 6 years older. They were hanging out with their high school friends. I decided to be productive, and I used to walk around the neighborhood with a lawnmower and cut grass. An 8 year old kid making 100, 200 bucks a week, no bills in the early 90s. I was on top of the world. And once I got that feeling of, hey, I can go out there and perform a task, make some money, and this feeling of freedom that came with it was very addicting to me. So I spent the next 20 years doing various forms of entrepreneurship, you name it, and literally sold everything under the sun because I love the feeling of being able to decide my own destiny and make money and then buy whatever I wanted. And that was really how I got into that track. It wasn't that I decided, hey, blood and guts are not for me. I don't really care about that. It was the addiction of, hey, I can go out there and do a thing, get paid for it, and then the freedom of being able to buy and do whatever I wanted.
So take me back to the very, very beginnings, where you were born and raised, and what were these foundational seeds of entrepreneurship that were planted into you that made you mow grass and feel this way about going about business?
Yeah, I think it had most to do with my relationship with my dad, or you could even say the lack thereof. And no ill to him, but his example that he set for me was, hey, I'm out of the house at 6 in the morning. I'm home at 9 o'clock at night. I'm the hardest worker in the room. I'm going to provide for my family. And that's what I followed. So I saw him doing that and providing for his family. So for me, that was all right, cool. That's the example I'm going to follow. I'm going to not just sit here and watch cartoons and be lazy on a Saturday morning. I'm going to find a way to be productive and do something. And that was really the early definition of why I decided to go that route because that's the example that I had.
So, being an entrepreneur for so long, was there an example? Was there an entrepreneur out there that you've always admired from the top down? The way that they started, the way they treat their people, the product they deliver, all the way across the board, customer service. Has there been somebody like that for you?
No, unfortunately, I don't think that we have any great examples of true entrepreneurial leaders who actually check all the boxes in terms of leading with integrity, making difficult choices responsibly. I think that there are a lot of good leaders who exemplify some of those qualities, but I cannot, unfortunately, find one other than Jesus Christ who was the actual full let's check all of the boxes example for a leader.
So, who's been kind of a inspirational force for you in your life and the work that you've done? Is there someone that you've looked up to and emulated at all?
Uh, a lot of really good and close friends that I've met over the past probably 5 or 6 years specifically through various parts, various components, right? So each one has sort of like this one quality or characteristic that is their gift, their calling that they exemplify that I take a lot of inspiration from and I kind of lean on them to be my inspiration in that specific area. Um, I've got a good close knit tribe of people that have kind of been on this journey with me that I take a lot of inspiration from. But apart from that, man, I take inspiration from my kids probably more often than anybody else, which sounds kind of crazy considering of all these people I get to hang out with, they have the least quote unquote life experience. But I think the most beautiful part is they also have the least life experience. They have not been told what they can and can't do. They just go do, right? They have really pure thoughts, really organic ideas that are not beaten down by society at this point. So they get to just say, hey, this is the right thing to do. Let's just do that. And they don't have to think about, oh, well, X, Y, and Z scenario. So it's actually pretty cool experience to kind of take your inspiration almost backwards in a way from what traditional society thinks is right. We got to go to the leader on the top of the mountain who's been there for 80 years. Not always the best way.
Yeah. So, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten, I don't know that I could boil it down to a sentence, but I will say this. The best advice I could ever give would be find out who you were designed to be and go be it. So, your authentic self, right? Not the definition society placed on you, not the expectations of your parents, not the pressures and the failures that you put on yourself, but figure out who you are authentically, right? And live every freaking day in pursuit of that and remove any type of labels, every type of right, I can't do X, Y, and Z that you put on yourself. And if you continue to pursue that version of yourself, not only will you find the joy and the happiness, but you find this freedom and this true definition of success where now you just get to be you. And it's so incredibly liberating to just operate every day without this feeling of expectations or pressure from anybody else because you get to just be you and your true authentic self and it's really a lot of fun. So I would encourage anyone to really spend some time trying to figure out who you are and then the rest of the stuff layers on top of that.
So, as a podcast host, if you could pick anybody on the planet to be a guest, to be on your show, to pick their brain, someone that might help you on your path, who would you love to interview?
I'll give you two answers to that question. the first answer would be my dad,
Yeah.
because, I think that and I've had a lot of conversations with him at this point, but there's a lot of pressure and expectation that gets put on a father to properly raise their son and provide for their family and do all these sorts of things that, unfortunately, especially for him and his generation, he had maybe not the greatest example of leading with love. His dad probably said, I love you 3 times in his life that he can count, right? And so it was difficult for him to then take that and then give me a version that was 10 times better. And now what I'm doing is taking what he gave to me and trying to multiply it by 10 for my own son. So to be able to sit down and have these conversations and kind of give him the space and grace to really just say, hey, I don't put any expectation on you to be perfect. I love you just the way you are. Feel free to tell me now how you struggled when I was a kid, right? The things that I didn't see when I was a kid, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. What is it that you were doing? Because I'm sure, hey, you wanted to be home and you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. You wanted to be there and do this or that, but you had to make those sacrifices that were maybe overlooked at the time. And, to be able to sit down and have that honest conversation, I think would be amazing. Um, the second conversation I would have, man, there's so many incredible people that I think are greatly misunderstood. Um, I don't know that I could actually pin it down to one specific person beyond that. So let
Yeah.
me just say the first answer is my dad.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that would be great. So let me ask you this. How do you balance this life of doing the best you can professionally as an entrepreneur, being somebody that has to take care of your own soul? What gets you up every day and motivates you to do all of this well, balanced, and at the top of your game?
I would say being my authentic self and knowing that, hey, this is a calling placed on my life to go out there and do this as an example for other people. So for me, one of the most freeing things in my journey has been seeing an example of somebody who went first and gave me a followable example of what it means to be free, what it means to be joyous, what it means to be happy and truly successful. And one of the greatest joys that I have right now is to kind of live that out. There was a large part of my life where I used to get depressed, like really depressed about, man, why am I being thrown back in the valley? I do this, I try and do the right thing, I take care of people, and sometimes life knocks you down, right? As an entrepreneur, sometimes you're going to get punched in the face, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And it can get really frustrating, right? When you feel like, man, why me? I'm doing the right thing. Why me? Why me? And it came a point in my journey where I realized, hey, for me specifically, I'm being put in these positions because I know I'm going to come out of them and I'm going to be able to be an example for other people who are sitting in that spot where they can understand, hey, that's not the final destination. Right now, I get to go through these things and then live my life out loud for other people to say, hey, if he can do it, maybe I can too. So for me, when I wake up in the morning, I know, hey, today is going to be an amazing day and another opportunity to show up. I don't know what it's going to hold. I have no idea what kind of conversations I'm going to have, who I'm going to meet, who's going to be impacted by them. But I'm going to give it every freaking thing I have because I know I might not get tomorrow. So I'm just laying it all out on the line and living as vibrantly and as me and authentically as possible because I know this might be the last conversation I ever have.
Yeah.
Right. And I hope to God it's not, but I can't control that. So for me, I'm going into everything 100% and leaving it all out there.
So I'm thinking if you ran into somebody that was young, say 16 years old, and they're thinking about being an entrepreneur and you can give them advice, I'm going to ask you the question this way. What if you have a dream tonight and you run into the 16-year-old you? You can give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated over the years. What advice would you impart?
I would strongly consider if it's right for you. I think that there's a lot of people who glorify entrepreneurship, and I'm probably guilty of it as well because it's amazing to be your own boss and be able to do everything you want, but it's not for everybody. You really have to enjoy the journey and the struggle and the process of everything you're doing. Um, I would not want to put expectations on someone, especially at 16 years old, to say, "Hey, yeah, you can go do that." What I would say is go out and live your life first. Forget about entrepreneurship, forget about your profession, whatever the career is going to be. Go explore, go do stuff, go travel, go talk to people, go try a bunch of different things, go work some jobs, get some experience under your belt. Forget about what your legacy is going to be. Forget about, hey, I'm going to build this multi-million dollar company. Just go do stuff. Forget about what it's going to turn into, right? Just go do stuff that you truly enjoy and find what it is that you love, what lights you on fire. And I think the only way to do that is to really go out and just try things
Yeah.
with a very open mind. Just go out and just experience life. Go meet people, go travel, go places, go do stuff. Do that first. Hey, if entrepreneurship knocks on your door and says, hey, man, here's an idea, go run with it, then worry about it then. But
Yeah.
don't put the pressure on yourself at 16 years old to have all the answers. I'm 38 and I still don't have all the answers, but I'm continuing to find those. And I would encourage someone who's 16 to do the same.
So let's say you walked into a room and everybody that you've ever employed or worked with or was a client is sitting in that room. And you walk through that sea of people and go up to a podium and you could tell them one fun thing about you. One thing, a story or a fun thing that would totally humanize you in a different way to them. What would you tell them?
This is a weird one. All right. So in 10th grade, in my technology class, all the kids in that class called me skid marks. Okay. This is an embarrassing story, but there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
I was working at my mother's office one time and I had gotten sick, whatever the case was, ran to the bathroom, didn't make it there in time. Okay. So now I'm stuck in this position. I'm probably 15 years old and I'm trying to clean my pants, right? Stuck in the middle of this office bathroom.
Yeah.
Again, I know this is incredibly embarrassing to put on the
Oh, yeah.
internet, but there's a reason for it.
Sure.
Uh, One of the other guys in the office walks in, and there I am, deer in headlights, standing there trying to clean the crap off my pants. And for some reason, my mother decides to tell this story to my friends. Now, you can imagine 15-year-old kids think this is the greatest story in the world.
Yeah.
That story spreads around the high school like wildfire, right? So I spend a lot of my time being called skid marks by my 10-year-old, my 10th grade colleagues.
Oh, no.
And at the time, it was embarrassing. I'm like, man, how do I live walking around the school where people are saying this thing? It was the most devastating story in the time.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, I'm here talking to you about it on a Friday morning, telling who knows how many thousands of people about this story.
Yeah.
My point of sharing that is there are incredibly embarrassing things that happen in all of our lives that in the moment we think are the most incredible, devastating things possible. You move forward a little bit, you realize is what it is.
Yeah.
Life moves on. We all have these incredible, embarrassing things. Who really cares, right? All of us struggle with these crazy things. It's very different and very unique for all of us. We move on. We do other stuff, right? We don't let that little one thing define our legacy. We just let it be what it is. Now I laugh about it.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I've actually never shared that story publicly until this moment, but for some reason it's been on my mind the past couple of days to make some content out of it for this very purpose. So thanks for asking that.
Thank you. No, that's wonderful. So let's completely contrast that question with this.
Sure.
Of everything that you've done, achieved, and evolved into, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Oh, I didn't hear the last part of that.
What are you
What am I
ultimately
proudest of?
proudest of? Yeah.
I would say my kids.
Yeah.
Um, the reason I answer it that way is multiplication. So I'm not going to be here forever, unfortunately, right? We covered that. But and I know that they won't be here forever either, but it's my opportunity to multiply everything that I've learned, every failure that I've had, every triumph I've had, to pour into them, and not to put undue expectation on them that they're going to solve world hunger or create world peace or do whatever, but to really take all the wins and losses that I've had and be able to give it to something so pure and know that, hey, I've got an opportunity now to raise another generation that doesn't have to go through all this crap, right? So that they can continue to go out there and be a light in their own tribes, where they can go and talk to their friends, right? Where maybe they can be the person who is the shoulder to lean on in their class, where they can maybe help that one kid who's got some trauma at home, where they can lean on my son as a friend. And seeing the breathing, living example of my success and my failure out there in the wild, being able to contribute to society in a way that I can't by myself, is really awesome.
Yeah.
So for me, it's seeing other people walking out in real life.
The thing about being a parent and being on this planet long enough is that you think about things like nature and nurture, like what goes into your kids and how they become who they are. And I've seen it with my son. He's 20 now. Things that he does that I literally didn't push. It was nothing a part of the nomenclature
Right.
of his world, and that's just what he does. So are you seeing an entrepreneurial spirit, things that you embody that are just actually happening naturally for your kids?
I would say not the entrepreneurial spirit by any means, but definitely the heart.
Yeah.
Both my kids embody the heart aspect, and heart is a tremendous thing for me, and leading with love, with integrity and going first. And I see a lot of that in both of them, in very different and unique ways. My son is a great athlete, a great scholar. He's he's by all the traditional standards, everything you could ask for. My daughter, not as coordinated, not as great as, and doesn't have the same grades, but her level of art and her level of heart are both off the charts.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about in our house nature versus nurture, um, the thing that I like to do is really find their nature and then nurture it.
Yeah.
So not say, hey, I'm going to grade my daughter against my son because I expect her to be the same, getting the same math grades that he does. Hey, that's your thing. Go do that. I don't care if you fail your math class
Yeah.
because I know you're going to have tried your hardest. I know that you have the integrity to go out there and put all your effort into the test. I don't care if you get a 42 on the test because I know that you tried. And I know that your impact in the world is not going to be in mathematics. It's going to be in some level of whatever your gifting is.
Yeah.
So to me, it's giving them the permission to say, hey, as a dad, I'm proud of you for going out there and being you, not the grades that you bring back home. Right? It's about how much you can go out there and live your authentic life and be you rather than fitting the definition of whatever we call excellent, by traditional standards.
So at the end of the day, Jim, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am a joyous, happy, loving dude who just wants other people to be happy. That's to me is the definition. When I wake up in the morning, it's hey, how can I impact the people around me? It's what is it that I have that I can give to somebody else? And unfortunately, it gets misinterpreted sometimes. It gets construed. It gets viewed through other people's lenses, but that's not on me. So I know for me to be able to go out there and just give my heart and give everything I have to other people and to open up and say, hey, if I have it, you can have it too. Um, I was raised with the definition of if you have more than you need, you build a bigger table, not a taller fence.
Yeah.
And I think if more people live that way, where we said, hey, I've got what I need to cover my bases, how can I take this thing and give it out to the other people around me so that we can all eat? We'd be in a better spot. So
Yeah.
to me, that's my definition.
So the one thing that you said that I want to key in on is you talked about anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur traveling and experiencing and getting out in the world. Speaking of that, what is one of the most magically unexpected places that you've traveled to that always holds a fond spot in your heart?
Alaska is the
Yeah,
answer. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been to
I
Alaska, but
haven't.
I would highly recommend it.
Okay. I've
Yeah,
heard people talk about it and um they're just like you can't believe it. It's just
yeah,
this different world.
it is. And you know what? The part that I love the most about it is how untouched it is,
Yeah.
and just how majestic nature is. We spend so much time in our environments with, houses and buildings and cities and whatever else is stuff, and we forget how beautiful unmolested nature is. And when you get to go there and just be an observer, it makes you feel really small in a
Yeah.
good way, right? Where there's so much incredible, beautiful stuff going on, and all of the problems that you think you have just kind of fade away, and you realize you're just this tiny little cog in this beautiful, amazing machine.
You know, the other place that reminds me of that is Iceland. And I remember uh, Dwight from The Office, Rainn Wilson, had a show, and he's always had all these things. He's had a career, he's had a family and kids, but he's always just been a little depressed, just a little unhappy. So the gist of the show, and I think it was on Hulu, was he wanted to see where the happiest people on the planet are. So he went to all of these cities, and the first city that he went to was in Iceland. I think he went to Reykjavik, and it's one of the happiest places on the planet. And it's completely cold. It's completely unexpectedly, the weather comes in weird ways. And it was just amazing to see, even in that film, the amount of landscapes. And I had a good friend of mine that went up there and saw the Northern Lights and saw all this stuff. But it's crazy. You would think a place that's kind of a tundra that is like that might not be the most appealing place. But at the end of the day, it's that unfettered nature. It's
Yeah.
that landscape thing.
Yeah. It's
So
just, it's proof that life exists in so many different ways.
yeah,
We have to be willing to look for it,
yeah,
right? We tend to think, hey, the beach is going to be the most beautiful place, and plants and things thrive in warm weather. So cold climate could never be this beautiful, majestic thing. But, if you go look for joy, you'll find joy. It's,
yeah.
to me, I think it's about looking for it.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to tune into your podcast, they want to reach out to you, delve into your world further, where's the best place to go?
Sure. So my own podcast is called the No Half Cakes podcast. It's nohalfcakes.com. And should we tell that story here? Would that be
Yeah,
helpful?
please.
All right. So the reason why it's called the No Half Cakes story is, I mentioned before, I started my first business at the age of 8, making some cash, and that carried me through the first 30 years of my life. And, I talked about, hey, when I was a little kid, my father's definition of being a dad was you go out there and you provide for your family. So for me, when I had my son, that's what I did. I modeled that. And I went out there. I would leave the house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I used to actually post videos on Instagram of me driving on the highway at 3 o'clock in the morning with nobody else out there, thinking that it was like, how cool am I that I'm out here hustling harder than you because you're still asleep and I'm at work. And it all boiled down to his sixth birthday, October 29th. Um, I come home 8:45 at night, and I have no clue to this day what I was doing that occupied me until that late at night before I got home. So clearly must not have been actually that important. But I come home 8:45 at night and I want to sing happy birthday because that's what you should do. And my wife pulls out the birthday cake to put it on the table, and it is half gone. She pulls out this half-eaten birthday cake, puts it on the table right in front of me. And in that moment, I realized, like, this is not success. What am I doing?
Yeah.
I look around and my kids are, trying to be excited, but they're half falling asleep. My wife hates me because she's dealt with kids hanging out at the house all day, having a party, and I wasn't anywhere to be found. I've got no relationship with my wife. I'm in the worst physical shape of my life. Like every possible thing you could look around. Yes, I had a great car in the driveway, a nice house, money in the bank, but that wasn't success.
Yeah.
So I realized in that moment I'm standing there, I'm like, hey, what am I actually coming home to? Is this truly success? When I open the door at the end of the day and I step into my house, what am I stepping into? Is it true success? Or is it this crap definition that society gives us of what we should be doing because that's what society does?
Yeah.
So for me, no half cakes was a promise I made to myself in that moment that I'm not accepting a half cake anymore, not just in terms of showing up for birthday parties, but in every area of my life, right? So it's not, hey, daddy is too busy to go hang out with you because I got to work. It's let's find a way to grow the business and also, be at my son's sport game or be at my daughter's dance recital or whatever it is, to be present in your life. And that to me is now what true success is. Forget the money and the cars and the business stuff, which by the way has been doing better now than it has been when it was a priority.
Yeah.
It's about being present and being truly successful in the real sense of success, not what society tells you it should be.
What a great story. Jim, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
My
Best
pleasure.
of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.